feeling right now is sadness. I could call it grief. I want to talk about that for just a moment. Because you may have found yourself, if you're living in close quarters with your kids, it's not that they're just making you crazy. They might be, but maybe with your spouse, if you're married, maybe with a roommate, you're finding yourself, oh my goodness, we're way too close for comfort these days. And what can happen is there can be this undercurrent of frustration. We often personalize that. We kind of take it out on someone. But let me get underneath that with you for a moment. I've been doing this myself. Here's something we've got to process through this time and in the weeks to come. And it's this: we have all lost a lot. Even if it's just the loss of schedule, the loss of a pattern. I was talking to a good friend last night who said, I'm just out of a pattern, and I live better. I'm better when I'm in a schedule and a pattern. You've lost plans. I know Stacy and I had some plans to go see family. We had a couple of trips or a conference here or there that we were really looking forward to here in the spring. Those things have been blown up. Some of you have loss of family members. We're now calling, parents and such instead of seeing them. So just recognize that. I think the first step is to realize, man, I've lost a lot. And let's talk about that. Let's name that. If you're with someone or even on the phone, talk about what you feel that you've lost. It'll be therapeutic for you. And in this week, we're talking about confession. It's just sharing how you feel. You're only as sick as your secrets. And until our secrets come out and what we're really feeling comes out, we can't start to deal with it. So think about this with me for a moment. Loss always includes grief. Several years ago, I went through a season of loss and lost a lot of different things along the way. And one of them was my dad, who passed away. And a friend of mine said, Jeff, wow, you know what you're experiencing? You're experiencing grief through this time, a season that I was in. And when he named it, and then I named it, it was really helpful because I realized that, wow, grief is a process. There's a start, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And so even now, let's look at a passage of scripture that I think is going to help us here. It's Psalm 137. I want you to turn there if you can. Psalm 137. It's a psalm of exile. I don't know if you feel like we're all kind of in exile these days, right? Even as Christians in our culture, we feel more and more like we're living in exile. We're not in Jerusalem anymore. We're not, it's not this kind of Christian nation, kind of a context we felt like we used to live in, and more becoming a more secular society. But now we're really feeling like we're in exile as the world closes in on us. We feel isolated. But listen to this psalm of exile. In Psalm 137, God's people are in exile. They're in Babylon. They've been taken over by this evil empire. And Babylon was wiping out every nation at this time. But listen to this passage. It's incredible. By the waters of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. Think about that. They're remembering the way things used to be. I think we've lost a lot of where we were just a couple of weeks ago. The way things used to be. On the willows there, we hung up our lyres. That's to say, hey, we set aside our guitars. We set aside all music. And it says here, verse 3, for there our captors required of us a song, of our tormentors mirth, saying, sing us one of your songs, sing us one of the songs of Zion. And then in verse 4, here's the key question. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? I want you to think about that for a moment. How do we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? How do we sing a song of praise, of hope in a moment like this when we're going through so much loss? Let's name it, grief. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. That's like saying, just let me forget what I can do. I cannot forget Jerusalem, or I just lose my life, my purpose. Verse 6, let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. How about that? If I do not remember you, let me just be silent. If I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. These are people in exile remembering. Now, Jerusalem was the place where the location of God was present. And then Jesus comes, he becomes the location of the presence of God in the incarnate flesh of his body. And now, as God's people, we have the Spirit of God living in us. The location of his Spirit is residing in every believer. It's in your heart. If you know him today, he's with you. So let us not forget that. And then it says in verse 7, remember, O Lord, against the Edomites, the day of Jerusalem. These are the ones who are coming at him. How they said, lay it bare, down to its foundations. Let's tear down Jerusalem. Let's take it down. Let's destroy this thing. O daughter of Babylon, doomed to be destroyed, blessed shall he be who repays you with what you have done to us. Blessed shall he be who takes your little ones and dashes them against the rock. Now that sounds pretty brutal. That's violent. But he's saying, hey, the Lord will take care of all things. He's going to make all things right. The Lord is the one who will bring justice, hope, and healing into our lives. But it's going to happen as we first recognize our loss. So I want you to do that today. Consider what you've lost, name it, maybe talk to someone that you love, or get on the phone with a friend and talk about, man, here's the first step. I'm sad. I am sad. And that's the emotion that I'm wrestling with. Not that I don't love you. I've been angry. I'm sorry I spoke the way I did to you earlier. I have this undercurrent of grief and sadness because of the loss that I'm feeling in these days. So let's walk through this time. We're not going to stay where we are forever, but right now we need to deal with grief. And as you do, confess that, talk about it to the Lord, and talk about it to one another. And that will be the first step on your pathway to healing and hope. So I hope you have a great afternoon. Get outside, enjoy this beautiful day, and may God bless you as you process the grief that leads to hope that we have in him.